Without further delay, let's welcome Timon Sloane, California artist. Timon Sloane will demonstrate his journey from observation to imagination, sharing how plein air studies serve as his foundation, capturing light, color, and atmosphere in the field. Then showing how those experiences transform in the studio into his signature moodscapes. Let's not further delay the demo. Welcome, Timon. Stage is yours.
Thank you. And when I was asked to demo, always the question of what to demo. I work with only 15 years, right? So, and then one time to snap out where I'm at, like what the work. And so I have spent a lot of time thinking about location, have a whole sector before I have my website centered on landscape. A few years ago, my work started to really diverge into things that were more from my imagination, more fanciful, colors that don't necessarily find in nature, and really trying to capture a sense of experience. Like when I'm at the beach, I don't know if any of you feel this, but I feel really rejuvenated. You feel remarkably refreshing and entertaining. It's almost like a form of meditation. That's what I'm getting. And what I've been trying for years to try to capture that again. My experience with bringing that experience to home, others be able to go to that experience. So, this is a piece that can give you a sense of what my kind of body of mood states are. This piece goes in the trend show. And this is kind of an example of a lot of simplification from my work, a lot of visual functions. Really after just a sense of experience. And that's what it's documented. And these pieces are all on my imagination. With no reference for technology, and I thought about the process of trying to demo something. It's hard. Some of these are really get stuck on. Without a reference, the painting is going south, sideways, it's really hard to get it back, what to do. And so there are times when I put a painting aside for a year, just until I have some great to do with it. So that we have a great demo. I have demoed some of this, but normally I think it's stay closer to the actual CD and the actual experience. So my work really goes from a ton of plein air work over the years. These thousands of paintings. I brought a box of these are all oil. We used to work in pastel. These are largely oils. Most, not all of these done on location. And taking out. I hike and camp. I go to places to spend time. I really love the experience, and I do love what I capture. But to me, these stay pretty close to the actual scene when I'm on location, and then they're deviating from that, get the things that are more imaginative or me emotional. So interesting jump. That's not easy. So, so the demo today, this is a plein air piece that I did. This is going to walk. What do you think? You got to see a lot of water media in the painting here. Anybody painting in water media?
Yes.
I have generally been, an opaque painter, I'll call it, oil painter or pastel. And just in the last year plus, I've started to paint wash experiment. I really like wash. I don't know how many of you know wash. It is not as widely known as going through periods of time like full life. But for me, it has two magic properties of both watercolor and water. And you can kind of do both, and there's something really unique about it. And I'm really quite excited about it. That's probably good for demo. So this is a plein air piece I did where I wanted to show you the reference. You know, and I didn't even bother printing this or doing it. Is the worst possible reference that you could have. You know, I would never paint from this. And actually, the scene, it was blown out. It was very hard to see. It's very bright. You know, but it was still a magical place to be. You know, hiked out onto a point down the cliff into a spot, and I found there's a little keyhole there, but it's like it's tiny. You know, and then I was, you know, it's kind of a magical place. It wasn't like going like making behind paint, but I put a total effort at the beginning there. I felt obligated, and this is often the case. And for me, I'm quite happy with what's kind of result. To me, there's like a lot of variation from the scene to the paint, right? Color choices, size, the shapes, the size of the hole, all kinds of stuff. You know? And to me, this is like the first step. Normally, painting a location, it deviates. You know, when I see it, then as I get into the studio and grow, I kind of deviate more and more until I can branch out. So I'm going to demo a little bit about my process today, but I'm happy to take questions now and I'm painting as well. Please go ahead.
Like for that, you said you use a reference. Make a sketch before when you are.
I do. I have lately been on my iPad because post it. Or what often the long point of me is just color in a magazine or on TV, single flash drive. I try to take a photo and get 2 or 3 colors, and just use those colors, and then do like an iPad sketch out of it, and then go from there. Yeah, so it's pretty rough. I'm really discovering a lot without a cake. So for wash painting outside, what I have found is wash is wonderful, but it's opaque. But it's hard to be opaque in the lights. Like if the sky starts off too light, too dark, it's very hard to light. Opaque you can make that happen. So in some ways, the first thing I do when the wash painting is try and set the sky and really use watercolor. So a lot of white paper come through, and you get a light, tinted background, and then you pretty much try to just use that for salad source of light. I did that at home today, just to let it dry back. And then I just set the last something else. It's a pretty fast step up, dry. And then I'll demo for you, how I go through. I have some small marks on here. I'm sure you can't see. I'm just going to reestablish you. And I'm using a really light pastel pencil. And I'm doing that on purpose because I don't want to fight the pencil in all layers. And it's always tricky when demoing. I want to fast and keep it interesting. Yeah, please feel free to squeeze in or stand up and squeeze in. This painting is a little bit smaller, but hard to see. Visible setup. Halfway between my studio setup and my players. But with wash, I find that it takes a couple of layers to get the darks where I want them, but layers beautiful. I also really like graphic nature of a graphic nature in painting it, so you can really see the brushwork and the hand of the artist. And I find that wash with sort of like a flat brush like this tends to really leave brushwork in a way that I like. So,
Usually, what would you prefer, like using the wash or mix of watercolor and wash?
so I have done it. I don't often mix them. You can, for sure. I use there are a number of different water-based paints you can mix together. And including casein and watercolor and wash. And so for the transparent parts, you can mix them, but the only reason I would really do that is if I had a color and watercolor that I didn't have to wash, maybe I would just go to it. But I tend to paint with pretty limited help, and especially for today, I'm keeping it pretty limited as well. And I'm just trying to start to get dark shapes in.
So this is purely wash painting.
It's really water now. Using a little bit of water. Get loosen up. But I'm just trying to establish the large shapes so you can see them while respecting the darks and the lights. So, one of the things I'm always really interested in is capturing a sense of light in my paintings. And the secret to light is really values, darks and lights. And so the really important thing is to, everything in the shadows needs to be darker than everything in the lights. That includes if you have a white object in shadow, it needs to be darker than a black object in light, which is hard to do that. You have to kind of really train yourself, force yourself. There's a saying I love. The darkest dark in the light is lighter than the lightest light. The darkest dark in the light, that would be black. In the light, it's lighter than the lightest light with white shadow. And so, in any scene that has kind of consistent light source, lights and shadow, we tend to paint them with our brain thinks they're white. Blacks in sunlight, you think they're black, you think really very, very hard. You have to fight it. Even if you're seasoned, your eyes still have to kind of work by it. So I'm always thinking about it as I'm walking. And here, this is all shadow, this is all shadow. And this is kind of shadow up here. And really important to respect those boundaries and keep, have a hard dividing line in your value scale. It's not about any point time in the clock. So these are pretty close right now. I will separate them. This is the shadow part for this. It's going to be this, and the other side. This is going to be light side. Light is coming across, catching the top of this rock face, and I need to respect that. So I'm thinking about it now, but I'm primarily trying to get in my darks and my shapes. Trying to demo kind of fast sheet guide. I'll also show you that I work pretty intuitively as I'm painting, and I find paint, except for watercolor, paint is pretty forgiving. You can move fast and you can fix it, break things and fix it. And I find that to be really the best recipe. Just keep things moving.
This is my first time to see a wash demo. I see more similarity in the way you're treating is like oil paint, not watercolor.
Yeah, well, this part was more like water. Digging to water bottle. I don't know here. Painting vertically as well, not painting with a lot of water. So this medium is kind of beautiful. You can go back.
Yeah, but what I'm seeing is whereas watercolor you have to keep whites. No darker, whereas oil paint, just like you said before, if you make a mistake, you can still put white and your highlights there. So I am curious to see how you do the white, the water, the splash of water that is,
Yes.
it's coming.
Yeah.
You have not painted that. I mean, you have not locked that.
You're right. I have not entirely reserved it carefully. And that's the beauty of this, because I don't like painting that you have to so reserve your lights. Lights. And yes, wash can go back in. And with pure whites, you can go back in quite nicely. With tinted lights, it's harder, but something that's really quite light like that. Wash is quite forgiving and allows you to kind of wait. which I like, it meets, it suits my style, that's the best one out.
If you can't save the wine, then you can use the water to.
Okay, to make, and that's why it's not water. That's not my.
Yeah, and so this is, and for me too, it's not my cup of tea either. I don't like to be that cautious. I like to be able to paint very intuitively and move pretty fast. And yeah, watercolor requires a certain level of planning and precision, which I'm capable of, but I don't enjoy it. Honestly, that's how I describe it best. Then we can put some rock formation down here. Any other questions?
I have a question about the lights and shadows that you played, right? So when it came out with the first photo, it was pretty blunt. There was just a dispersed light.
Right.
But painting difference that you were taking has very defined shades and shadows, right? So is it all in your mind, like how the light falls and how it should be, or is there, or is this way how you come up?
So I think the more and more you paint, it starts to become more and more your mind, because you understand the properties of light, what make a good painting, and what's there. But the camera has a really hard time capturing it. Camera compresses values quite a bit, so we can see sort of 10 values, the camera kind of captures like 4 to 5, 6. If you take a photograph of extreme light, like the sunset, either the sky looks great, the ground looks black. Or vice versa, the sky is blown out, and our eye can see both. So I think it's a mix. You're trying to observe what you see, but over time and over the years, you start to know what should be there, in order to be able to exaggerate what's there. So it's an interesting line, and it's definitely kind of a moving line, maybe this way. I'm just trying to still work the darks up. I mentioned earlier, it requires the layers to really get the darks where I want them. I'm trying to keep the shapes interesting. Other questions?
So you're not only blocking, but you're actually changing the values on the data.
Yes, it's a lot of value work, for sure. I know these really is my darkest dark year and year. So, and with watercolor and with wash, your darks will dry lighter. So then you have to push them back and dark and dark. And lights will do the same thing. So I was intimidated by that at first. I hate the idea that things not drying the way they go down. But the same is true with acrylic. It's one of the reasons I gravitated to oil and still love oil for control. But I guess I've learned that I know some painters who just lay down every mark they lay down, they don't really touch it again. And it's not my style. I prefer really to be able to sort of dance with the paint, make marks, respond to it, back and forth, rather than plan. And somebody was asking me how much plan do, but people grade it out and measure. It's not my preferred way of painting. I find I get into a better flow if I can be moving fast. I almost think of it as playing jazz, or responding to what's going on, or responding to what's going on around me, and allowing it to organically emerge. Did I hear somebody about to say something?
So, yeah, have you started painting oil oil painting works first and then move to wash?
Yes, I started in oil, I switched to pastel for years, and I love pastel.
White pastel.
Not dry pastel.
But
And then I started doing a little bit of wash painting with pastel. There weren't really serious wash. And I went back to oil, and then more recently really discovered the wash. Like I said, for 1 year and a half, it's very quickly work. And use it for the small piece. I love it for travel. It's really small setup. I love the dry setup. You got gloves and solvents, all that. So, but the wash is relatively new for me, but it came, I find, you know, if you're, I think anybody who's an oil painter, I think it's, what can I say? It's, I find it to be pretty close in its own sort of way. That it has these properties, paint properties, the ability to layer and correct that, I think work for oil painters. Really pick it up. So, I have this wave form here. I'm gonna want, some greens to come out. And this is again where I'm using just my knowledge of water and sort of painting that, light when it's hitting hard, goes into water, can kind of pop out and pull these greens out. Source of light is going to be coming across this way. This is going to be sort of, a bright spot coming in, catching this wave. I'm going to turn this wave a little bit from here. Some of the bridge has come from the key and some of the around the corner here. And then the rest of this is kind of just a simple weaving concept. How are we doing on time? If you see how just traveling a bit.
Good.
Keeping me honest on time, there was a problem.
How-
Okay. So, if anybody thinks of it, just give me 15-minute call outs.
Is the paper for gosh, different from the watercolor?
No. That's the same. Yeah, very much the same. And, yeah, I in every media that I work in, I'll go through a period of time where I'm really trying to figure out, the surface, the substrate we painted on. It's one of the most important things to figure out and to, sort of solidify. You're the one of the properties you really think of. Then there's also the framing aspect. So to kind of get that workflow figured out, this is the Canton paper. They call it 2-ply. It's almost thicker. You have open until later. I don't know understand. It's quite thick, quite rigid. And so
Do you do gosh like on the vertical surface or usually like this is just for the demo you just look at it?
I normally paint vertically again because I'm really incorporating oil. And but this is I kind of tip back and forth. But it's painting pretty thick.
Yeah.
For the light right now to do that better. And also better for your back. So, when you're painting plein air, on location, in oil especially, you don't have a luxury of players in the spot. You have to learn to paint. Completely one way. And there's certain things you can't do if you're painting one way. So plein air, no, and oil, no dry at all. Lots of things dry fast enough, yes. To use it, it's much easier to dry. You can get different effects on. You go work in oil and paints like another one. I guess I never thought. You get much more subtle things and layer effects. You just make it what. When it's more like laying tiles, you really have to mix the right color, lay them on, not cut it. And that you get the marks right. Off, you can't lay it on top, you really gotta have to straight down and have a tile. It's its own thing, it's got pluses and minuses. But it's just different.
For planar, what is not the preference?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, you know, I mean, I think that, I did it for years and years. For me, right now, this moment of time, yes, I'm kind of going to cooperate. Whether I'll be there a year from now, it's, I am a painter who I tend to, I really like variety. I really like, experimenting and trying things. So I'm just laying some of these lights down. And this was an example of where I lay in like some top dots and paint that oil. And you typically can. But here's the really tricky one. You see this passage in here? This is white and shadow. We were talking about light is white in the dark. This is the lightest light in the dark. And so this needs to be darker than in the darkest dark in the light. Elements of this rock face that comes out. But they need to be like really close. Ideally, and it can be hard to get it right because there's some details, especially on site or whatnot. This is right where the values from. I don't know if they're down right here, but one thing I do on location is here too. Is this photo. Look at things a lot of work. And if you're a Tyler, I'm getting you're interested in capturing light, all about that. If black and white photos, if you're working, analyzing, then you see that. And I use that still today. There is a time when I did a lot. So I'm going to try to shoot for this this shadow side color. I want it to be interesting. What we kind of color. And it's going to be sort of the shadow side of the braid. And that's set up now with the white so we can get the top of it. People bring my water line down. Are the brushes stained with the color or they are? Yeah, I just have reflective mixing brushes. Yeah, basically watercolor brushes.
Do you not prefer acrylics paper?
Well, I have painted, I like the surface, but I'm also looking for paper and boards that have, sort of a thick wall. That's really important to me. Because of the inner work, also the frame is really big. And so in artists, I have not found a product of theirs, I wouldn't hardly melt it. And so you're thinking like 300 paper or you're thinking of front side. What's that? Yeah, so that would probably do it. I would probably like it.
Yeah, it's really.
Yeah, I think that would probably work for me. It's always a trick finding things that are also in the right place in the affordability spectrum. Well, and some more shadow marks in there. I don't have really quite resolved. It's kind of misty section that I have here.
The spray.
I don't like it. It's kind of messy.
Probably I'm asking a question which is about grading. How big map would you prefer to be grade the smaller articles?
So I don't actually use maps, and I used to. But then I tried, I like painting, showing my pastels like oil paintings. I like the look of that. That says what are they reading to the watercolor. Also, it adds complexity and cost. And when I was founding my own work, you know, the frame is more expensive, they're bigger, and everything that. You gotta put in that color, you know, use the white, or they got like colors, frame. Just add all this, and now that you can frame, you know, what is the, especially these, you know, that, and frame the world.
It's a break, immediately you know you have to do it.
Yeah, I prefer way to get. I didn't bring anything like that, but, yeah.
Won't it disturb or?
This one goes all the way to the end of the frame or no frame at all?
I'll put it on frame, but the frame will come right up to the edge.
Yeah.
The frame like that.
Okay, there's no open space.
Yeah, that is kind of how I saw it. And, I like the look, but to be really frank, there's a convenience element to that, too, you know.
Just a question, won't it damage the article of eventually or save the colors, if not, thing?
We changed it.
I have not been there. So, yeah, so there's no question here. So, the separate from the map is if there's glazing on top there or. So, oil paints, I just sprayed oil very. With, pastel, and framed in behind glass. Even there, though, I used to use spaces, but I came to that frame, the glass where they go there, and they're like designing the frame. Why? Ready to stop. That's where my application from. With my block paintings, the frame, I've been, I haven't been shown them a lot, probably to start this summer. I have been experimenting with different fonts. And so it's framed it out, they do that last. Called it expector fix or cold wax medium. That I want always do that. It's still block framed without glazing on top. And they are not as 100% insulated, I would say. There's no point splash of water, something on one or the top. But they look, putting glazing on here changes it. The questions, talk about the frames, or the frames, all these things. So, I have a solution, but kind of new to this, kind of leaning on friends of mine. Leading the way to protect.
Now I would be waiting for your review as well.
And how that works? All right, I'll let you know. I have some training, although I'm planning to show a bunch of these like an open studio unfit. So that's something, you know, just gonna have them kind of in that glassing suites. Yeah. So those are, this is a homemade board, gator comb with a linen. Right. That was my favorite surface, created a lot of work, and then lately I've been moving towards the commercial surface. Same linen, but it's made by, series. That's called gator board or gator foam. It's a wonderful product, very lightweight, incredibly resilient. And this is gator board too. This has some cute sheets, they stay flat, and you can soak in the water and it'll work.
They can stay for long for years, like this, or they won't have.
Yeah, they're remarkably tough. Get lighter.
And what medium?
That's what.
So you need your song, no, you made it on later.
Yeah, so yeah, the linen is now, there are times when I take on all linen, that acting on really, Europe or something, you then have to know that for pain, move forward. So I better come to things.
Yeah.
You know.
Or that what is only limits of canvas.
It's, well, canvas is cotton and linen is basically the same thing, but made of linen. It's more organic. It has little defects in it. It really looks, canvas is machine made and it will glare at a certain angle, catch light. It does things. And linen, I just find to be a much more organic, lovely material. And so that is back to this discussion of the substrate, figuring out what to paint, learning to love something. And so these linen I have is rolls and rolls of it in the studio. I keep rolls. And I can, you know, I expect my own canvases and so I can have the same linen and little things with these bigger paintings, right? So, it's actually, frankly, you gotta get rolls of watercolor pictures for bar, but it's not, you know, oil painting is much more, dynamic, like, you know, you can go really large, really small, they're really tall, you know, the wonderful medium. A bunch of practical reasons, like framing, dipping, and all that kind of stuff.
For this bigger piece also you've used linen.
Yes, it's exact same linen that's on the boards. Welcome to feel it, get up close and take a look. You know, yeah, these oil paintings, you know, I have no problem going, for water on it, it's not gonna be able to hurt. The flexibility, no, and the linen always is gesso, so it's primed somehow, and, I normally will buy it primed, because it's a lot of work to prime it yourself. But there's a lot of quality control that you get out of, making your own canvases. And, all right, I'm just, talking about all the things, fun mix. What I am recognizing in my painting right now, I just happen to have a dark blue, that me is a low blue, dark blue. And, you know, a classic problem with paintings is you'll have, it's all really, you know, round or dark. It's like, how do you get unusual colors in parts of the painting and uniform, you know, or use the colors throughout to get this color of uniform. So I just took advantage of the brush that happened to be somewhere that I liked. And I'm thinking about the surfaces of this rock that are facing the sky and are exposed. And so they'll catch the skylight. So these are going to be ridges that are facing up. You might be able to see them here, the subtle, this is going behind and going in. But I'm just trying to catch, in essence, the feeling of light. I'm also going to get some blues under here and that are reflecting the light that's coming up out of the water. So this is where that question was about, you know, seeing all these down. This is where learning, studying other artists can be a ton, and where you can start to get creative ones. So, out there, I definitely didn't see any reflective items. I couldn't even really see them, you know. But yeah, I don't have much there, but I think this painting deserves to have some reflective light over here. And I'm going to mix them up. See what it is. All right, so time. So now reflection of water, you know, so the thing I see with people painting water is the water is like a completely different universe from the object. The object's up here, the water's down here. I think the real secret to painting water is to sneak in, like, you know, I've got a bunch of darks in here. I'm gonna sneak in darks. Well, that's why we sneak, I'm going pretty aggressively. I want reflected colors down in here. And I want them to be back in. And I'm going to trust the medium, trust the ability to fix things. Try not to be so precious about the painting. And I hope it comes together. See what happens. But getting, you know, the colors here into the water now. Again, getting color of water into the rock. And those are the secrets to make it not seem like people that are together players. You'll see light really bouncing around. Light to these photons and particles, they're all going all over. But it really helps to learn the mechanics of reflections, think about the angles, you know, light bounces, like, you know, at an even angle all the time, right? So, but looking into this, at that angle, the light will bounce into this object. Now, looking here, it won't. I mean, first of all, the sky is what I would see out here. Bouncing out with it. But once you start looking down and start seeing into the water, it's obviously well. Again, things you'll learn to observe more and more and more. You can read, some of you might have been sort of a scientific minds that read books about properties and physics of it. And I think that's great, but I also think observing, we kind of figured it out. But as you start to put all those things together, those are all tools you can do. And they give you then a lot of licensing freedom. You really make it, more fun. All right, so I'm going to try to get color at maybe color there. Then I'm not painting with any black. I'm just using an earth color and a blue and dark. And I get some darks and drops along the water here. I'm going to start to sort of carve the rock. They're, kind of how the face is facing up. I'm thinking about a chunk there. As I'm making these marks, I can start to slowly allow the mark to be the rock face that shapes to emerge. I'm thinking. I do. I was telling you earlier. I don't have this plan out. I don't have it all. I'm going to have a rock right there. So again, I think it's very responsive and organic, but I'm just kind of swooping into stuff. But I like to be fast and intuitive and aggressive and trust that I can fix things that I break. And I'm going to break a lot of things in the process of thinking. And there are very few things that can't be fixed. Things that can't be fixed in this painting device, but that's when really dark over the sky. Right? And so I'm trying to be careful there. I can screw up on the wall. Something goes. But almost everything else I do. So the other thing is on paper, it's not really strong paper. If you work it too much, the paper can start to come up. This is pretty tough paper, and you buy really thick tough paper. And just like a drawing, you can get that second up to the rest of it. More questions?
So you can reactivate with pigments.
Yes.
You can.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, I mean, this is dry right now, I'll do it right now. It's fun, there's the active, right? And so you can loosen them and make use of that. And right there, I'm just going to speak a little bit, I don't think it's quite hard to be wet. That's when you start to have paper. There we go. Yeah, and the thing about block is you can put it aside and back. Deactivate. Reduce. Not much, but a little bit. Maybe here, yes, but I generally have been trying to avoid it. So it's really only here and here so far. This is still translucent. So where it's, again, I'm working on values. I either have to add white to get it to that side of the value scale, or I have to let some of the paper come. This green is letting the paper come, which will tend to look like a clone. It is actually. And you add white, you're definitely risk of getting so that's the balance of here.
I'm just curious how you bring back your perspective now. Perspective of water. Yeah.
You think I lost it too much?
No. I'm just curious how the water around the rocks can bring it back. How you do it.
So, to me, most is always a tricky thing. In a painting, I can see where it's going. Harder than
Yeah.
here.
Might still wait. Often if you wait on the whites, they come in fresher near the end. And so I can see kind of where I'm thinking about it. I'm not going in full white. I'll go over it farther.
So.
It's a surf, so it doesn't have to be no,
Yeah, I'll hit a few just to establish it. Hopefully you can see it. Again, I will probably do this a little bit later and then it'll work. But, with you here, I want to be able to see it.
Yeah.
Then, like a reflection in that.
Present water.
Yeah, again, water will reflect nicely. I want it to be so loose. You notice I'm using the hand a lot, you know, trying to blur things. Now, when it's start, I think the cutaway is kind of make an interesting rock pattern. And again, I'm not gonna follow a reference that tells me,
Yeah.
you know, this stuff is big. That like this, I'm really just gonna think about what looks good in this.
Flying from your left.
Trying to get all that done, and see if we can get filled in. Yeah, but it's really always value over color.
Right.
And you can just make interesting color.
I have a pretty vivid purple here. I'm tempted to squeeze some into the water. It might be too much, but so you can see in my other work where I go really extreme, pushing the colors. Exactly. So, you know, there's like a couple of motion.
So many different rules, but probably something.
Yeah. And again, you know, it's great things that come back. What we want, it's home, that's sitting on top of leading the eye back into the
I will pick up the first thing.
yeah. Yeah, the core is some parts of it has loose than others. That's a lot of also, that is the very translucent, cover other colors. So, so I think the cadmiums is being pretty okay. Really? Yeah, and so you can, you know, you can, colors are pretty far, pretty far. Perhaps medium using perhaps, you know, if you're thinning them down with anything, mostly oil or something. Yeah. Yeah. So these are all pretty okay, you know, they're, while it's kind of intended to be largely okay. Some of the colors are a little bit this. You can see again that green is one where everybody's white or paper all through.
Second is option. They put it.
Clearly here, white is.
Story again.
So, the rock and light, I'm also thinking about how do you, really easy to just get lost. You get one color. Look at the rocks out in nature. Pretty fun. Beautiful colors. And even, well, just think about it. You can put beautiful color that select. So, There's another concept called, aerial perspective. And those terms. There are no aerial perspectives.
I think.
Aerial perspective, so, we were talking about perspective going back on this, right? So that's linear perspective, lines, one back or road. The aerial perspective is the things that are further away, there's more air between the object. The object will become, let's say, mistier, or grayer, or it'll fade away. And that's something you can observe on certain days, especially if body is better. But that's again another example of exaggerating as far as wonders for us. They push them on your back and you really take a focal point by hitting everything else and just feeding it back. Now in this painting, I've done it a little bit here. It could be some like this rock is faded back from this surface. And in my mind, I was wrapping it around back, further back, plus there would be more misty water air there. You think of that aerial perspective as like shower curtains. With a before shower curtains. You're looking through those to see the object. And I'm doing it a little bit on this rock to try to turn that rock face around. So it's a little further away. So I'm thinking about knocking down the colors of it, putting in complements. So grays are a little bit violet and colors. You get them to settle down more. And that's another really powerful tool. Start to harness, think about, use this for you.
Maybe cooler.
It depends.
On the color of light. Normally it's cooler, but people will tell you it's yellow, but like on a sunset, it can actually be like
Pale.
orange. Like the air is picking up the color of light, and those shower curtains are the color of that.
So you can get creative with it. You see it even in the
Yeah, the diffused one, the diffused light.
I'm going to use it to put layers of the trees back in. They're really,
Right.
abstracted, but cool. But I think beautiful, really useful. And a lot of people don't pick up on it until a little bit.
Yeah, especially the bush on the left is a warm, hazy, rather than on the right side. It's pushed differently and has a different light property.
It's not easy to paint that. Kind of with brush strokes,
Yeah.
all vertical brush strokes that I see.
Very much.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna, again, bring this a little bit forward, it's a little bit more, pigment and yellow, and you're right that in classic training is that, aerial perspective is largely into bluers that go back. And so you want things to be warmer, like, yellows and reds come forward, you will go back. That's because of the aerial perspective.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of using that here, this yellow pull forward, this.
So now, you compliments do like color get active.
You would, yeah. So, well, it depends on how you do it. So you can paint on top without activating it. You let it dry, you can make one mark on top. You can put it in, so you can mix, or you can go full over. If you go twice, it'll activate layers of blocks, you do both, you think about it. But so you can make a nice clean mark on top of something. First mark is not clean. Having a place activated. Make sense? That's a really good tool to figure out.
And pulling them up.
Oh, yeah. Kind of goes in. Let's see. I'm gonna do a little bit more on this. Now I'm gonna. Do. So this is another example of mixing a white and shadow.
trying to make sure it's dark enough. That we can see it in here.
Yeah. How does that technique work in shadows? You have to blend a lot, or the edges are pretty much defined without that?
I think those are unrelated, you know, it's an artistic choice for how hard the edges could be, can be, versus shadow versus light.
Yeah.
Technically, I would think most artists, most paintings, you don't want as much detail in the shadow, you want the light. But that's really depends on the painting. Normally, you want a painting to be, you know, there's kind of a rule, you don't want things to be, you don't want it to be sort of like, you know, better for painting 30% like, 70% dark, or 10% something else. Basically, you know, light and dark, you want it to be off that. Sometimes you want it to be perfectly balanced. And then you want some sparkle, you know, that's kind of what it is. And so, and then all of that say, you know, in the shadow, most paintings that are not have some, our eye doesn't tend to read that much, our eye gets overwhelmed by the light. And if you, a painting is going to focus on the shadow, you can find details in the painting. If you were to stand up, clear your eye with a quick look, a light's going to hit the detail of the shadow. And the painting is, I think, more effective to capture that experienced person versus somebody, somebody that's looking at every pixel scene. The experience of like just opening your eyes and seeing something. Certain things will dance and sparkle at you. So you're asking me, so maybe these things are sharp, maybe they're too sharp. They don't bother me right now. That's what I'm worried about. And I don't take a light graphic painting. No, it's not necessarily perfectly illustrated, but I like the graphic effect for their interest. You want allows you that more for them. So that's just kind of an artistic choice. Well, and well, it's not going to be everybody's choice, but I don't like you see it in the shot image, you know, stuff. It's just the style aspect. Yeah. All right, so you know, getting there, I would need to lighten this. I think it's looks dark. Break it up. This is a little sharp on the horizon line. I haven't fully developed this. I'm starting to notice that I put in reflective color and I paint it over horizontal color. That's a way of getting the reflection to kind of be under in the water. This is also reflective light coming off this, trying to use light and shadow to farm into the rock a little bit. And I haven't had time to do anything here, but or really put it all this way. I don't want to contact with them all like this. Any questions or comments or on this? What I want to do is switch to this. So this I just did earlier this week before coming here, right? I just did it on a bigger piece of paper. This was almost probably the same amount of time I was, right? And just a kind of another version of kind of the same thing. But I was just needing this to just get kind of warmed up to think about things. And then I decided to just stop. The kids isn't quite done, but I also like things that long-term way. And there are probably some things I still do. So I thought that, and people always ask, how do you know when a painting's done or how do you finish? That's hard to do. And so I thought we could talk about this and then I might make some finishing remarks on this painting. Okay. I'll tell you the things that, so what I would do, and I love this, I'll do it here just demonstrating, but I'm going to take a photo. This is really important. I would probably
clean it up, I'm not gonna take the time to do that over here, but what I would definitely do is get it in black and white. You know, the iPhone now is to do, right? You know, you know, painting in black and white should look really interesting and should look lit, yeah, after light. So, I think it's not that, but to me, it's a big thing. And it should look, if, you know, if color can't save it, you know. You know,
Now we can say, okay, well, it starts with design and having the right composition, but then it's value, you know. And then color is like the icing on the cake. You can frankly almost get away with any color. And you can see I'm starting to do that, you know, but it's the values that make the painting look, you know, luminous. And so when I look at this, and there's some things I see that I will change that are dead on, you know, and I'll tell you what they are, you know, sorry, it's small. But, you know, the first thing for me is maybe that the rock face in the light is not light. It's not quite glowing enough in the sun to get a rock face. So I would bounce that out. So the second thing to me is the horizon lights. The horizon lights coming forward. And I don't see the lie down. You're thinking about that. It's so obvious. And these marks are kind of a little bit chunky, you know. I think there's something I like about the color and all the value and that they're kind of like a walking there. There was a first pass, just, you know, I added it. And then I just decided to stop.
So how many times over can you do all the same thing? You're not done today.
Mhm.
Tomorrow you start over all of this.
Mhm.
And then you do black and white and then so you're like, this part is not coming up. How many times can you go over?
It's almost different. You know, I don't use it. And as long as, you know, again, there's certain things you can't do. I wouldn't be able to turn this back and stop.
Right,
You know,
right.
So there's certain parts where, but that's almost the only limit. I could put a breaking wave right on this. You know, well,
So now what do you do with the horizon? The contrast is like stop.
yeah, so let's see.
How would you make it?
I will reactivate it with using it.
Reactivate.
And I brought this tool, and when I'm painting landscapes, this is really useful to me. And I brought it, the other thing I will do it with you guys. Again, I'm painting in a water medium. I will turn it sideways. So the drips, I think it's very all right. And obviously, I want to do that. Studio. No, it will be back to so another real trick that I don't know, took me longer than sort of it's like when I mount paper on a board is to mount it square, not just swap it down and take it, but to actually do something that's sort of then when I use a square, otherwise it's like. So there are simple things like that, but all the big difference. And I do think it's square if you're a landscape painter, or if you're making a lot of vertical marks like that, it's very easy for vertical marks to fall. So, and I have a huge T-square and one of them. I like it. Wow. So let's see what happens. So I'm just going to kind of come in here. Maybe there for us. And activate. See where it takes.
No, it's supposed to fog of the horizon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much. I just need to put it down there.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a question for asking about how flexible. You know. Are you activating now?
intentionally being messy, going over the rock, I'm trying to not be too much about it. So, and, that's taking more time in the studio, but just to demonstrate the concept that you can, be more usable of your thing in a way, and the fact that what is the solid complicated thing that just having a vertical is giving you but it's still a little more. I'm going to try, and I also go to get it in. And to your question, I'm going to do that at 20 times. But I can do it 20 times, for the drive. That's the only real thing. If you're not doing a ride, or use a big town, and do something you can take. And even if you kind of get ready, sometimes you can use a little bit of sandpaper, it's not vastly expensive. You really find
Do
something.
they use this only, like with watercolor?
I have not tried. Yeah. But it's almost anything you do watercolor. Is it all the watercolor techniques, basically. And you just get the added arsenal.
Okay.
So that's kind of what's beautiful about it.
I have.
Yeah.
The color of the water wheel that you have is about the white color. It's supposed to be violet. Why did you decide that color? I mean, it's just, I'm thinking, if it's your imagination, or did you see that color, or it's totally different from the rest of the way.
It is. And so I saw some of that color. It was really brief. And the thing when you're painting is often when you're painting and then you're just trying to get a snapshot of the color. Quickly paint away. I saw some purple kind of in the shadow underneath the arch, kind of up in there, which I captured here. And so I kind of, I would say, and then I saw more of a shadow blue kind of coming out of the side. And so those were just kind of two color snapshots that I captured in the player. And yeah, I think I leaned more to that purple. I think it's not kind of resolved right there yet, but I just use that purple to kind of set the foundation for the value for that misty part of kind of get it started.
Yeah, this work is much warmer than the other one. It can support the purples than the other one, yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot more.
It's one lot more.
And certainly a lot more saturation
Right.
here, and a lot more greens, and so I definitely kind of push the colors more. And this was, again, when I was thinking about the demo for today, starting with that photo, the first painting, then the way it kind of jumps. And I'm still pretty close to what I think of as the photo. Nobody would recognize this from the photo, right? But, and in my mind, this can start to go, every time I do it, I almost like to put away the prior references so that my method continues to jump. Like they go somewhere else, another deep in some direction. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For me, it's kind of getting more and more into my experience. Less and less go to the certain reality. That's kind of all I have. So, it's where I am now, my journey goes. Sorry.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
One of the best demos we had. Wow.
Thank you.
Largely, Windsor and Hobart. And they mix nicely, but wash, I think cheap wash can be bad,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of in all artists. Material, but wash in particular.
One lines of system.
Yeah. Right, yeah, some of the vendors spend money on 4 tubes of paint, vendors, and these are the, you can buy and wash and work. I don't know what's set up, I wouldn't say, is perfect. I do, this thing's not great, but it works, right, affordable. Right, it's not working, but, I don't worry about getting perfectly clean as they perfectly, and reactivates. A lot of that inside and outside, a lot of this When you're traveling, you can't travel as a driver, right-hand off, does work. It's easier to keep and not speed up all day, you just have to use the drive lane, and then it's harder.
Maybe sound.
Yeah, start to say what. But it kind of works often for me to start with the drive and even out more as I want. I kind of working from what prepared for, okay, you know, you have to speed out and then, you know, and you find balance. I just find that easy to remind you the pain spots. I would say the biggest breakthrough I've ever had when I started using my spot. I remember once taking the brush, blinding into my hair. So I've got, you know, when I started not frantically, you know, trying to be anxious, but just start really making marks or lots of things where, you know, you see a lot of things, you see something more aggressive. Those are many cases that will break from forward. Something interesting about it, but not being so precious that everything you do is only doing the other thing. And to just realize that, you know, you're going to pay another 1,000 pages in your life and keep moving forward.
What brush is a specific wash or is it another wash?
There are more watercolor brushes. There's actually some of these are sables that I use oil too. And I've had them for so long with Wizard and to look at them, but I don't know the brands. This is the top. Yeah. A lot of women. Yeah, I have a whole, you know, a whole different set of stuff I use for oils. I'm more honestly religious about my oil brushes. Most of those brushes. And so with oil brushes, you have to, you have to be really aware. These I just confused. I never want, you know, just keep them in this pack. It's one of the reasons I love working with space. It's like, you know, and I almost never even wash the palette or wash off the surface. Like, I keep working with dirty surfaces, but having all of those colors that make it there absolutely helps. You know,
You don't really want to use it as a cute color everywhere. You want to use that messy color all everywhere.
You must be happy coming from oil paint to wash, oil paint every time you have to wash it.
That's true, although I would say that I learned to not even, I don't wash my oil. People are surprised by this.
Yeah.
But what I do is, I oil them out. So with linseed oil or, another cleaner, it's kind of like orange, not really, turpentine oil, not turpentine, it's orange, cleaner. But it doesn't clean them perfectly, but sort of clean them, but then I just keep them wet with oil out of water, so they don't go out. And as long as you're paying every day, it's all like that. And
So you put some orange?
no, I just have them lying down on my very normal. But I had to clean them and squeeze out all the color, you know, for the most part. And there'll still be a little bit in there, but you know, I always wash them every day. Then I do occasionally recondition. I wash them and send it. Dry them, I'm actually, something in here, but I make little sleeves of aluminum foil wrapped brush and pinch it, make sure it's out flat, make it come back to looking like oil. You know, you don't have to do that out there every day. That takes a lot of fun, because it's, you know, it's time consuming to sell.
Now I interrupt, running out of time, so is that okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Sorry for that.
Oh, thank you.